Are you in life 2.0 and you are trying to figure out what your next move is, trying to figure out how you're going to maneuver your career, maneuver into a different career, and you're just trying to figure this thing out? You have landed in the right spot. Today, I am talking about Power BI. I am talking about Power BI. So here's the deal. A lot of people ask me, they're saying, Terod, how do I really get into Power BI? Is Power BI really that hard for me to get into? Is it hard to learn? Do I need to know how to code? And all of these types of things, right? So what I'm gonna tell you is this, as I tell everybody else. Power BI is not hard to get into. I'm not gonna tell you that it's not hard to learn, because it may not be hard, but for me, because I'm already doing it, right? I don't believe that it's that hard to learn. Is there a lot of coding involved? No, not really. There's not really a lot of coding involved. Now, I don't want to be all spooky about it and say, hey, there is no coding. What I will tell you is this: there is little to no coding. There's little to no coding. What do I really mean by little to no coding? There was a point in time where to be a computer programmer, developer, you would have to, probably write a program and have 100, 200, 300, maybe 500 lines of code. I've never written 500 lines of code, okay? And today you are able to use some artificial intelligence to really, speed up the process, to assist you with the things that you don't know, so that you don't have to go to your manager, your boss, and say, hey, I can't figure this line of code out, or what needs to happen. But I mean, that's even further on down the road. To be honest, it really is a low code environment. It really is low code. You can really learn Power BI and be able to create dynamic Power BI reports without having to know, or without having to produce a whole lot of code. Now, the code that we use in Power BI is called DAX. It stands for, it's DAX. It stands for Data Analytics Expression. Basically, there are two main ways that you would be using DAX. You'll be creating measures, and you'll be creating calculated columns. In many cases today, most IT departments, and really it's not necessarily even IT, most data departments now are not necessarily requiring you to create calculated columns, because they prefer for the calculated columns, or they prefer for the columns that are needed to be created somewhere else. I'm not even going to get too deep into where that is, but the columns are created somewhere else. There are cases where you may need to create measures. Now, I have friends that are in Power BI that have never used a measure a day in their life. They've never created a measure a day in their life. What I'm saying is they've never written code a day in their life. So Power BI is one tech environment, one tech environment, I guess, that you can get into, that you don't necessarily have to code. But, there may be instances that you may be required to code. So, with what I teach over at Power of the BI, shameless plug, over at powerofthebi.com, I do teach a low code environment in order to make sure that, my students have a full breadth of knowledge as to what could be required when it comes to taking on one of these opportunities in the data world. But again, I don't want you to feel as if, you're not going to be successful, or you would not be able to be successful within the Power BI world because you don't know how to code, you don't like coding, and you know that coding has a lot to do with math, and you're saying, hey, I wasn't good in math, so, I'm sure that I'm not going to be one that would be a very good fit when it comes to a Power BI developer job. That's totally not true. Absolutely not true. I have some counterparts that come from engineering backgrounds that are good that are working in Power BI, and I have some counterparts that come from English and social work, psychology backgrounds that have learned Power BI that are doing just as well. If I may say so, they're doing just as well as those that come out of engineering or math backgrounds. Now, For those of you that are, psyched out about getting into Power BI because of the quote unquote, I'm not good in math, listen, the math that you will use in Power BI is math that is learned by a fifth grader, at most a sixth grader, right? Now, can you create some high-end problems or some high-end situations if you like to? Yeah, you can, but I'm gonna tell you, about 90% of the time, the math that's used in Power BI is math that's used by a fifth grader or a sixth grader. How do I know? Because I used to be a fifth and sixth grade math teacher, and the information that I taught them in the classroom is the same information that I use on a daily basis on the job. What does that really look like, Taraj? You're saying, hey, you're kind of what they call it, gaslighting me. You're gaslighting me. I think that's a term that my kids use, gaslighting. You're gaslighting me. You're making me think that this is what I can really do, but you're not really giving me the meat and the potatoes of what this thing really looks like. So here's the deal. If you have a fifth grader in fifth grade math, right? Let's say this: if you have a current fifth grade math, or a recent fifth grade graduate within your household, I want you to look in their math book, and I want you to look in the back, and I want you to look under look up PEMDAS, 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 PEMDAS. It simply stands for parenthesis, addition, multiplication, it stands for parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, addition, division, and subtraction. PEMDAS, parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. I'll say it again. It's been a minute since I've been in the fifth grade classroom, but again, I'll say it again. Parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. One more time. Parenthesis, exponents, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. That is the order of operations for a math problem. So if you have a math problem, that is the order that you want to solve it. You want to solve everything in the parenthesis first. Then you want to solve everything that has an exponent. Then you want to solve everything that has multiplication and or division. Then you want to solve everything that has addition and or subtraction. Pretty much in that order. But at the end of the day, what I'll tell you is PEMDAS is what we would use in Power BI to determine how we're going to create or how to solve or create certain codes or measures. I'm going to call them measures. When I say measures, it's synonymous with code, creating code. That's how we would create measures in Power BI. Now, with that said, what I would tell you is this. As long as I've been working in Power BI, I've never used an exponent. We don't see exponents. Can you see exponents? You can, as long as you understand you can see, as long as you understand that you can see exponents, just understand that. But for the most part, you're probably not going to see exponents when using Power BI. So I'm going to take out the PEMDAS, and I'm still going to call it PEMDAS, but I'm just going to say parenthesis, multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction, right? You're not going to be using any high-end calculus. You're not going to be using any differential equations or nothing like that. If you can multiply and divide, if you can add and or subtract, or if you can multiply and divide, and if you can add and subtract, that's really the most you're going to be using. That's the most you're going to be using mathematics for in order to create measures within Power BI. Now, just to give you an example of what type of what type of simple measure you could use. For instance, let's say we have revenue, right? We've got revenue and we have expenses. we don't necessarily have to calculate revenue. We don't necessarily have to calculate expenses. There could be times where we may need to calculate revenue and we may need to calculate expenses. And basically, in order to calculate revenue, everything that's a revenue, you're adding each one of those up. Everything that's an expense, you're adding each one of those up. Then we want to say we have profit, right? We take the revenue, we subtract the expenses, that gives us gross profit, right? Revenue minus expenses gives us gross profit. It's not too terribly difficult to understand that. And at the end of the day, in the business world, that's how business is. That's how businesses stay in business. They stay in business by the bottom line. The bottom line is you've got revenue, you've got expenses, you're subtracting the expenses from the revenue, and the bottom line is profit, right? Listen, what I'm telling you is that if you can at minimum add and subtract, you will be okay with Power BI. Now, there may be things that you may need to multiply and you may need to divide, and that's okay. That's okay. Here's the deal. You don't have to know you don't need to know how to derive the answer from your head using multiplication and division, even with addition and subtraction, because it's in the computer, right? It's in the computer. It gets no simpler. A fifth grader has a harder time solving a math problem than a person in the professional world in corporate America does, because a person in corporate America has access to the computer. And the answer is coming from the computer. The fifth graders solving it with their hands, solving using a pen and pencil to solve the problem. So what I'm telling you is, it's not that terribly difficult. Now, if you just absolutely are not able to input a number in the computer and understand what understand what a addition problem is, or understand what a subtraction problem is, or understand what a multiplication problem is, or what a division problem is, then yeah, you're right. This probably is not going to suit you well, right? You probably want to go somewhere and do something in your 2.0 life that's going to allow you to read and write and produce just a report, or some type of report. I'm not going to say just a report, but to produce a report. But at the end of the day, it's not that terribly difficult. As a matter of fact, in my course, Power of the BI, I actually teach 100 measures. I teach 100, not necessarily measures, but I teach 100 pieces of code. And out of those 100 pieces of code, those are probably going to be the only pieces of code that you will need throughout your Power BI journey. Some of those pieces of code you will probably never ever touch, right? You'll probably never have to use. But if you did, you'll have access to them because you already have them, right? You already have them because I'm giving them to you. With that said, it's just a matter of just understanding that Power BI is columnar based. What does that mean? When you have a table, you're going to have columns, and you can have 1 column, 2 column, 3 column. It could be as many columns as needed. But if you create a table in Excel, for instance, they're going to all have columns. And when you multiply, you don't multiply vertically. 4 times 4 is 16. No, you're going to have a column that's going to have revenue. You're going to have a column that's going to have, well, I'm not going to say revenue in this particular case. You're going to have 1 column that may have a list of numbers. You're going to have another column that has a list of numbers. And you're going to have a third column that's going to equal each one of those in that list from each one of those columns. So say you have column A in cell 1 and column B in cell 1. Column C is going to be A1 times B1. Okay. It's just that simple. Now, I could have given you some type of graphical presentation on that, but it really is just that simple. Now, do I understand that you may need to have some type of visuals to understand what that really looks like? Yeah. I get it. But that's not the purpose of this video. The purpose of this video is just to tell you that, hey, in your 2.0 life, whether you're in 40 2.0 or you're in 50 2.0 or if you're even in 60 2.0, this is a profession that you can get into, that you can pretty much escalate at salary, scale at salary pretty quick. I'm not gonna beat that dead horse because there's a lot that I can go into when it comes to scaling your salary at a relatively fast pace when it comes to Power BI. Now, another thing individuals ask me all the time, they say, hey, well, when it comes to the coding, can I use AI? Yes, you can use AI when it comes to the coding. As a matter of fact, it even goes even deeper than that. You can ask AI, and I'm going to say ChatGPT or Claude. I'm really going to say ChatGPT. I really like ChatGPT more than I like others when it comes to the coding aspect. Not that I get paid for ChatGPT, and not that I don't get paid for Claude or anybody else. It's just a matter of ChatGPT is a lot more thorough to me when it comes to creating measures for Power BI. So not only can you use AI in many cases, and I'll bounce back and tell you why I say many cases here shortly. But not only can you use ChatGPT, but you can also ask ChatGPT, hey, I have these two columns. What can I use, what can I use these two columns for to create a dynamic Power BI report, right? And boom, it'll tell you, hey, you can use those two columns to create this. And it'll tell you what this is, what that visualization is, and it'll tell you what the measure is in most cases. I mean, this thing is pretty dope. I've been saying in recent videos that AI and BI being business intelligence really has not fully integrated as of yet. I still stand by that. I still don't believe that AI and BI is fully integrated, because I think when AI and BI fully integrates, it could get to the point to where people are not needed, but that's not the case yet. Developers are not needed. You still need developers in order to create great Power BI reports. But those great developers utilizing artificial intelligence in the correct way can make, Power BI reports beyond this world. Power BI reports beyond this world, no doubt. And that's no make-believe. Now, when I say in most cases or many cases, you are able to use artificial intelligence or ChatGPT in the work environment. Some work environments don't like you to use don't like you to use ChatGPT. Some work environments don't like you to use ChatGPT, and that's totally cool. I get it, because if you start feeding ChatGPT the information from your organization, and then it starts training on your organization. Now, all of a sudden, your organization's information or data types or data is available to the rest of the universe, not just the world, but the rest of the universe. Anybody that has access to ChatGPT. So I totally get it. I totally get it, kinda. You're still able to use ChatGPT. You just probably are not going to be able to use ChatGPT within the organization's intranet. But at the same time, given that Power BI is a Microsoft product, you will probably be able to use Copilot. Now, I'll be totally honest with you. I'm not a real big fan of Copilot. I have worked with Copilot. It's very similar to ChatGPT. If I remember correctly, Microsoft has some intermingling business dealings with ChatGPT. So it's very similar to ChatGPT, but it's not ChatGPT. Trust me. Today, Copilot is not ChatGPT. Copilot is not able to do today, right now, as of the recording of this video, and you can look at the timestamp of the recording of this video. And I'm 197% convinced that Copilot is not able to do right now what ChatGPT is able to produce and return. But it can produce viable returns and results. The reason why I believe that is, and the reason why I believe that Copilot, you're able to use Copilot to intermingle or to utilize it within researching for your Power BI reports, is because Power BI is a Microsoft product. Copilot is a Microsoft product. Now, I normally would have done this by now, but I haven't so far. But even before I say that, like this video and subscribe to this channel. Like this video and subscribe to this channel, because it really helps me out a lot. It helps me understand what you're looking for, what you need, and what you're really thinking about. In addition to, it helps the algorithm, right? So when creating measures using DAX, again, it's very simple. It's about as simple as using fifth grade math, PEMDAS, parenthesis, multiplication, division, addition, subtraction, without using the exponent part of it. Now, you will be using the exponent part if you have an exponent, but what I'm saying is you're probably not going to be using an exponent. Now, the other side of creating Power BI reports is the data visualization piece, right? It's creating column charts, bar charts, line graphs, funnel charts, all that kind of stuff. Things that you create in fifth grade math, right? So, I'm not going to say it's too terribly difficult, but what I'm telling you is it's fifth grade math. I'm going to say it again. It's fifth grade math. Whether it's fifth grade math projects using those charts and funnels and graphs and stuff like that, or if it's simply just using the mathematical calculations, which we're calling measures, in the quote unquote in the data world. If you take the web development piece, basically what you would be doing is setting up your visualizations, the different ways that you show or see visualizations on a report. Little boxes, you're placing them side by side, you're making them certain widths and certain heights. They actually have snap to grids, so it'll snap when the heights are even, it'll snap when the widths are even, when you're looking at columns, or we're looking at vertical alignment. So you're looking at horizontal alignment, the heights are gonna be even for different visualizations. And if you're looking at vertical alignments, the widths are going to be even, or they're gonna snap to grid. However you want those to snap. Where I'm going with that is, again, it's not too terribly difficult to do. It's just a matter of you spending a little time, becoming good, spending a little time in being methodical in how you want your page to look. Because at the end of the day, you really do want it to kind of have the resemblance of a website. So if you look at a website, and it's got like 15 different kind of fonts on it. Let's not even say that. Say you look at a website and it's got like 4 or 5 different fonts, and it's got maybe 6 or 7 different colors to it. It looks like a kindergarten coloring book at that point. I've seen some coloring books of kindergartners that were actually pretty good. But for the average kindergartner, we look at a coloring book, they're all outside the lines and a bunch of different colors, and you see all kind of stuff, maybe a shape drawn that really wasn't a shape that was drawn, but to you it's a shape, and to them it's art. Okay, so at the end of the day, you want your Power BI report to have a super duper resemblance of a website, right? So there's several different aspects. There are many different aspects of a Power BI report. So what we've talked about initially is the calculations, the coding, the DAX of it. And now we're talking about, the visual aspect of it, to where, you want it to be visually appealing, to where someone looks at it, they don't know the difference between a website and your report, right? Because that's how you're designing it. Now there are some data aspects to where you need to work your data magic, and at the end of the day, that's what Power BI really is all about, is the data, because the data is what you want to present in your visualizations. The data is what you want to be represented in your mathematical calculations and your measures. But at the end of the day, the data is what makes that thing work. If it's bad data, it's going to be a bad report. If you heard the age-old analogy of data in, garbage in, garbage out. That's what it is. If you got bad data, your report is garbage. I don't care what it looks like. It's going to be beautiful garbage. I don't care what the calculations say. It's going to be correct garbage. If it's bad data, it's going to be a bad report. So, that's what we will be spending, probably 85 to 90% of our time on, is, making sure we have good data. Now, with that said, there are also instances to where you may get some bad data and you may need to clean the data up. If you get dirty data, you want to clean the data up, and that's when we'll go into Power Query, which is in Power BI. We'll go into Power Query in Power BI and we'll clean up the data. We'll make the data look like the data's supposed to look, or we'll make the data look like what it needs to look like in order for us to produce a good report. So just because you have bad data does not necessarily mean that the data cannot be cleaned up. Now, there's a lot to that. I don't like using the word can't, but I'm not going to go too deep into cleaning up the data, because the wording gets a little tricky, and I don't want to scare anyone off. I want you to feel like you can do this, and I don't want you to feel as if giving data a bath and cleaning the data up is going to be something that prohibits you from taking this journey into learning Power BI. Another something else that is very important to Power BI is the modeling of Power BI. You'll hear people within the data realm always say all the time, modeling. Basically, it's creating relationships between tables. You have a table, you may have, let's say you have 3 tables, or let's say you have 1,000 tables, but you want to have the tables need to all have relationships in order for Power BI to work smoothly. Because one of the other things that makes Power BI such a powerful tool is that when one table is interacted with, all of the other tables can be interacting, could be showing interactions as well. The reason why I say could be showing interactions as well, because you could turn the interactions off. If you've got 5, 6, 10 different visualizations in a report, you may want 8 of those visualizations. When something is selected in one visualization, you may want the other 7 to be showing what's being interacted with within those reports, within those visualizations as well. However, you may have 2 or 3 visualizations that you're like, hey, if this visualization is selected, I don't want these 3 visualizations to have any type of interaction if this one happens, if this visualization is selected. I.e., say we select something in this particular table, and in this table we don't want to show different colors to happen or different things that happen within these 2 or 3 tables. So I select something here, nothing happens within these tables. However, in these other 7 tables here at the bottom, when I select something here, if I select revenue here, it shows me the revenue in the states in this particular visualization, in the cities in this particular visualization, in the zip codes in this particular visualizations, and so on. It could be a range of things that could be selected. But at the end of the day, when we go into modeling, we create relationships within modeling. That's what's really making the interactions work within the Power BI report. So we've talked about measures, we've talked about modeling, we've talked about Power Query in regards to cleaning up the data. We've talked about the data itself, and we didn't go too deep into the data because the data is what it is. And again, I'll tell you, garbage in, garbage out, and you can replace garbage with data. Bad data in, bad data out. But if you got good data in, you'll get good data out. But in addition to, because we may have some bad data, we may need to go into Power Query and clean that data up. Yeah, we got to give that data a bath. So we've talked about data modeling. We've talked about the data itself. We've talked about Power Query. And we talked about the report phase of Power BI. In addition to, we talked about the measures that are used in, we talked about how measures are used within Power BI. So with that said, I mean, we've covered a wide range, not necessarily wide, we've covered a broad range of topics that are covered in Power BI. And what I'm telling you is you can do this too. I want you to feel as if, you know, if you decide to take a chance to jump out here and learn some Power BI, that, you know, you will be able to change your situation, whatever your situation may be, whether it's more money, whether it's location, whether it's working hybrid, remote, or going back to work on site, whatever you want to do, that's going to be available to you. Now, one thing that I didn't say that I normally say before the videos get started that I'm going to definitely say right now, I want to totally be transparent. I do not work for Microsoft. My company is Power of the BI. My course is Power of the BI. And you can find that shameless plug over at powerofthebi.com. The product itself is Power BI. Power BI is a Microsoft product. Power BI is a Microsoft tool for data visualization and reporting that I have chosen to be my tool of choice. There are several other tools out there that are, I'm not going to say just as good, but there are several other tools out there that are pretty good, but those are not the tools that I chose. I chose Power BI as my product of choice, and the name of my company is powerofthebi.com. I am not, and we are not affiliated with Microsoft in any way. I have worked with Microsoft in previous time as a contractor, never worked directly for Microsoft. Don't think that I necessarily have any stock in Microsoft currently, but I have thought about it before, and I may even look at it here in the future. But I just don't want you to think that I'm just out here selling, creating a video because I'm trying to, you know, promote Microsoft on the low. Now, what I will say is I will take Microsoft as a sponsor to this video if Microsoft feels as if, or to this channel, if Microsoft feels that it's a very good channel for them to be represented by. So Mr. Microsoft, if you're out there, you're listening, you want to be a sponsor of Power of the BI, and you want to be a sponsor of powerofthebi.com, hey, I am not ashamed. I will take your money. I would love to be a partner with you. Now, that's a side note. That's a little joke, but not necessarily. We're looking for sponsors out here because this is this channel here is totally run by moi. Okay, by moi. But anyway, with that said, with the sponsor, with not a sponsor, with that said, with a sponsor or without a sponsor, with that said, with a sponsor or without a sponsor, this channel, the show is going to go on. So if you're looking to learn Power BI, I want you to, you know, I want you to sign up for powerofthebi.com. But here's the deal. Don't just jump out there because I said so. Go through all the free material first. I've got tons of free material out here on YouTube at Power of the BI out here on YouTube. I've got tons of free material. I've got free material on Instagram, free material on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. Go out there and get all of that free material, right? And then I do a free webinar. Join the free webinar, right? The free webinar is not every day and it's not every week. So you'd have to follow the link down in the description below in order to sign up for the free webinar. But then come over to the free webinar and spend some time with me and then get more of that free information. Then if you're interested in learning Power BI, if you're interested in joining forces and really wanting to take this thing to the next step, really take your Power BI journey just a little bit more serious, then I would encourage you to join one of the several courses that I have that would be available to you. But anyway, with that said, that is all I have today. I want to say thank you for joining in, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next video.